Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and if you missed the previous videos in this series, I'll put a link down in the description below. We got a nice calm morning out here at the pond, and since it's been a couple of weeks since I put out a video, I've got a lot to catch you guys up on. So in our last video, we caught the first bass out of the pond and decided to keep him as a pet, and we're going to be naming him later in the video. And we also had the first wild ducks to hatch in the pond, and we'll be giving you an update on these 8 little babies here shortly. And we were finally able to get some underwater footage of these bass and bluegills in the pond. So we're going to start this video off with some action, and we've recently created a new series called the Piranha Playback, and that's because every time our bluegill feeders go off, they act like crazy piranhas. So if you've never seen a flying bluegill, you're in for a treat. So I've struggled to film the bass ever since I put them in, and I haven't gotten any underwater clips of them. So I was thinking, what would be the best way to get some shots of them? And I have a feeling that right there, the oak throne is the single spot that holds the most bass. And literally within minutes of leaving the camera underwater, we get our first bass sighting, and that's great to see. And since the beginning of the pond build series, we knew that the oak throne was going to be one of the major hangouts for all the bass and bluegill and bait. There's so many root stems, and it just provides a perfect place for the fish to move in and out of and hide. But one of the reasons I've really wanted to get some of this underwater footage of these fish is because I want to start tracking their growth and making sure that they're growing like they're supposed to, and that there's enough bait in here for them to eat. And we'll probably see a wide variety of bluegill sizes, but in the beginning the male and female bass should start out growing pretty similar, and then after about the first year those females will start getting a lot bigger than the males. But we're getting a ton of activity right here, and this bass looks to be really healthy, probably about 5 to 6 inches long. And they were 2 inches when we put them in, so that's some good growth. And we got another nice sized bass. It looks like he noticed the camera and had to turn around, come in and inspect it. Oh, there's a really nice bluegill. You can tell that that's a big female. And man, look at that chunk. You can tell that's another female pregnant bluegill. And around here, the bluegills will start spawning on the first full moon in April and usually keep spawning throughout the year all the way into October. And they've been using that pea gravel a lot, and I'll show you some of those beds here in just a minute. Man, I love seeing all these fish congregate here together. But another thing I've been doing is looking for a good spot to put a live stream underwater camera, and so far this is definitely the best spot that I've found. And I'm going to start working on getting some cabling out and a camera mount set up so we can view some underwater footage. And hopefully our Starlink speeds will allow us to upload and we can do a 24/7 live stream. And it looks like we got a little rain coming through, and this is a really cool shot of a group of threadfin shad coming through. And if you pay close attention to their mouth, you can see that they're eating, and they feed mostly on plankton. And most of the time you'll see them feeding in low light situations because that's when the plankton rise up to the surface levels of the pond. And you can even see here, I got an afternoon shot of all of those fish feeding right there at the surface. It almost looks like raindrops, but that's actually those shad feeding on the plankton right before dark. Alright, it's feeding time for the 2 little guys. Got the bass right there and the bluegill hanging out just back there behind the log. And I got some little small minnows. I'm about to drop some in. And I bet you this little guy's hungry. Oh yeah, he's definitely warmed up. Looks like he's ready for another one. Got him. Top water. Man, he's fast. Alright, we're going to go 2 at a time. Alright, we're going to give him some time to digest those and drop some pellets in for the bluegill. Alright, while we watch them eat, it is time to name these 2 little guys. And in our last video, I asked you all to leave a comment on what you think we should name him. And the person I chose is MZ Fishing, and he said name him Tiger and copper because of their strains. And the bass is a tiger bass, and the bluegill is a copper-nosed bluegill, and I feel like that is a perfect fit. So the bass will be tiger, and the bluegill will be copper. So get in touch with me, MZ, and I'll get your package sent out. Now I want to see if Tiger will do something that Moby used to do, and Moby was so aggressive he would always follow your finger around the tank, and if you ever put it inside the tank, he'd bite it. So yep, he's got some of the same traits that Moby did. Looks like he's definitely interested in the fingers. And something else he does that's just like Moby, whenever he gets hungry, you always know it's feeding time because he'll swim around smacking his lips. Alrighty, we're back out here at Liz's garden, and she tried out some new products this year and had some success with them, so we wanted to share it with you all. And she started out by installing this drip irrigation system, but she's not just using it to water the garden. She's mixing up a blend in this 50-gallon holding tank and then distributing it throughout the garden. But the products come from Sierra Natural Science, and they have a 5-star growing kit. And the reason Liz liked it so much is because it's made out of organic materials. So there's plant food, vitamins, micronutrients, and the organic pesticides for the bugs, which we definitely have a bunch of them out here. So she adds the product into the barrel, and then we use our Acre power source to power up this pump, and that pumps all the goodness right out to all the vegetables. And Liz said the garden couldn't have turned out better this year, so a big shout out to Sierra Natural Science. So I'm back out here pumping the water out of the pond to help water the trees. And as you can see, we use these Acre portable stations all over the farm. When you have 80 acres and you need electricity everywhere, it comes in handy, folks. We even used some of the smaller versions, the 521 and 535, earlier this spring to water the grass in those areas we couldn't reach. But we're using the latest model, the Acre 757, and it is 1500 watts, which is plenty of power for pumps like we've used, TVs, refrigerators, fans. And my favorite part about it, it only takes about an hour to get it 80% charged, and it'll last us all month. They have advanced, long-lasting batteries that'll give you 3,000 complete charge cycles. And the Life PO4 batteries have a lifespan that will last 6 times longer than the industry average. And it also comes with a 5-year guarantee. So if you're into camping, RVing, or that off-grid lifestyle, check them out, and I'll put a link down in the video description. So one of my favorite things to do out at the pond is sit out on the dock at night and watch these fish around the green lights. And here recently I've noticed we've got a mystery fish, something that I didn't stock in the pond. And we stocked bass, bluegills, threadfin shad, and fathead minnows, and somehow mosquito fish showed up in the pond as well. And you may think I'm crazy, but I've sat out here enough nights to be able to identify each of these fish, and it's gotten pretty simple. If you see, these are all threadfin shad. They're kind of football shaped and constantly swim in a circle around the lights. And this is a look at the mystery fish. They're really long and skinny, and the back half of their body is almost translucent. And what really makes them stand out is how skinny they are. They really don't have any girth. And let's just compare that to some small bass and bluegills. As you can see, whenever they pause and look to ambush those smaller fish, and they also have that football style profile, and you can see their fins as well. Alright, so I got a plan to figure out what the mystery fish is. I put my hat over the photocell right there on the light box. That's going to make our underwater lights out here come on a little bit early. And then I'm just going to use a net and scoop it up, and we'll still have enough daylight to see what the fish is, hopefully. Alright, so the mystery fish finally came out right before dark. We're going to try to slip out here and catch a couple. We got a few of them, and folks, I can honestly say I do not have a clue what type of fish this is. It almost looks like a saltwater fish. And the video didn't do it justice at night, so I took a couple of photos with a flash. And a couple of the features that really stand out to me are the eyeballs and the back half of their body being see-through. And several people said that these are golden shiners, and that's the same thing we feed our pets in our backyard. And they don't quite look like this, but they're saying that when the golden shiners grow in hatcheries, they start out looking long and slender like this, as opposed to the wild-caught golden shiners, which have that really dark gold look. So I'm definitely not certain that that's what the mystery fish is, but if you all know what it is, leave a comment down below. But either way, reading the forums, they say it's a good fish to have because any bait fish that's long and slender is a perfect snack for a bass. It was also nice to get to see a small school of bass hanging out together. Usually starting around fall time, bass will school up and start chasing bait together. And another thing I find interesting is how many bugs land on the water right here around these green lights. And you can see all the fish coming through and picking them off. The mystery fish will do it, and the threadfin shad will do it. So it's basically free fish food. and less mosquitoes hanging out around the farm. And I don't get to witness this often, but any time that the lights cut off right at daylight, you can almost always count on the bass to attack. So they're ambush predators, and any time they see an advantage, that's when they're going to attack. And I'm guessing that right when the lights cut off, these bait fish are stunned for a second. And you can see we got some topwater action going on. And look who else showed up this morning? Mr. Turtle. Man, it looks like this guy's pretty old. Alright, out here at the pond, we got a nice calm afternoon. I'm going to try to catch one of these small bass about every 2 to 3 weeks, and really I'm just trying to keep an eye on them, make sure they're getting plenty to eat, also track their growth. So I have started seeing them out here around the edges, chasing fish and hitting topwater. So we're going to start out with that little topwater plug, and if that doesn't work, go to the old faithful rooster tail. Here's one of our ducks, the whistling ducks. There he is. Got him. About the same size as the other one I caught. Yep. They're growing. That one's for sure a good probably a good 5 inches long, and they started off at 2, so I'm not going to keep him out of the water long. Good look at him. He's got a thick belly on him, so he's eating good. I'm happy. That's what I wanted to see. We got some bluegills bedding right down there. I'm going to slip down there and see how close I can get to them and see if we can see them. So one interesting fact about bluegills is they're colonal nesters, which means they build their nest in colonies. And the reason they do that is to protect their eggs and fry from predators. And unfortunately, the fry that are produced from the edge of the colonies are 3 times more likely to be eaten than those small bluegills on the inside. But they're a lot like bass, and the male will build the nest, and he'll constantly circle it. And when a female chooses the male, she'll swim inside the nest, and they'll begin circling it together. And the female can lay anywhere between 1,000 and 6,000 eggs, and after that she leaves the nest, and it is the male's responsibility to guard and care for the eggs. And it looks like we've already got some active nests here and some males protecting them. So I'm starting to find out what it is the deer like, and I'm going to show you how we've been cutting the peanut hay out here. And you can see we like to keep this trimmed down pretty good around the garden. But this is your typical peanuts. And we've got about 80 acres of peanuts right now. But that peanut hay is what the deer like to come out and eat in the afternoon. But that height is what they really like laying down in. I guess it gives them a little bit of cover. But if you can see over there closer to the wood line, we let some of that grow up this summer, and that's what they really like to hang out in during the daytime. And then they'll move out here in these fields after dark and lay down and kind of hang out here around the cabins. We got a nice sunset out here this afternoon, and it's time to load up the protein feeders. You can see they've been eating the corn mixture more than the protein pellets, and that was kind of to be expected. So I think I'm going to take and mix them up a little bit today, and we're also going to put a time lapse. I may bury a GoPro right back in that corner, facing back out this way, see if we can get any cool shots like that. Got everything mixed up, got the GoPro set up, tried to bury the cable a little bit so the deer didn't notice it. There we go. Let's see what comes out. And here's a quick look at the deer feeder time lapse. They didn't come out early in the night, but they did come out right before sunrise. But you know I can't do these videos without actually having a pond time lapse, and this is the first time that I've done one since we powered up the green lights, and I think it adds a cool effect to it. You can also see the cabin lights, and it still amazes me that that does not affect the wildlife and they don't mind us being here at all. But I am always fascinated by these night lapses. You can see the shooting stars and airplanes flying through the sky. And I'm sure most of you have seen images from the new telescope showing all the other galaxies out there. And who knows, there may be somebody building a 5-acre pond on a planet in a galaxy long ways away from here. But that is an awesome view. And it looks like we got the sunrise about to come up, which you know what that's going to do. It's going to bring out those pesky blue herons. So I got this really funny clip from last night. So there's a buck eating out of the feeder, and pay attention to this little black blob that's running across the field. And one of the deer sees it and starts following it, and the other buck doesn't have a clue what's going on. But I'll just go ahead and fill you in. That is the farm cat that we call Whiskers that comes out at night chasing the mice around. And keep in mind that it's pitch black dark out here. This camera is infrared, so there's really not any light. So I'm sure that the deer can hear the cat running around and probably smell it. But as you can see, they're just not used to being around cats. I think the cat wants to be there because it knows that the mice are probably going to come to that corn. And the deer aren't sure if they should be eating around the cat or not. So this goes on for a little while, and we got some other bucks that move in. And they're really not sure what to think about Whiskers either. So after everything's said and done, I think Whiskers won this battle and ran all the deer off. And hops out of the feeder and back into hunting mode, ready to pounce on a mouse. So we've had a pair of black-bellied whistling ducks hanging around the pond the last month. And I'm happy to say we've had our first wild baby ducks hatch here at the Crimson Oak Pond. And it looks like there's about 8 of them, and they're probably already about 2 weeks old in this video. And I'm guessing that they hatched in the woods right behind the pond, because I'll see them walking up the pond dam, and the mom and dad leading the baby ducks to the water because I don't think they can fly yet. So I'm going to be really interested to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks, because if you followed along with this pond series, you know how many predators we have with the owls and hawks. But I'm starting to get more comfortable just knowing that the whistling ducks have already hung out around for a month and have not been ran off by the owls. So if all the babies survive, I think we're going to release Allie and Bam Bam into the pond to hang out with the new ducks. And just to give you an update, they also had 6 baby ducks hatch this spring, and after we raised them and they got somewhat grown, we found a good home for them just down the road at one of our neighbors. And it didn't take long at all, and Allie's already built another nest. So it looks like we're probably going to have lots of baby ducks hanging around the pond. So I love seeing the baby ducks, and just a hint at one of our upcoming projects in the pond, we are going to build an extremely advanced floating duck house. You'll be seeing more of that in the next few weeks. And while we're on the topic of birds, we have 2 geese that we call Johnny and June. Well, another pair of geese flew in, so I figured we have to call them Cash and Carter for Johnny Cash and June Carter. And it looks like they're enjoying eating some of that brown top millet on the island, which is perfect because it keeps me from having to go cut it. So we got some more wildlife news, and we recently found out that we had a 3rd owl. Well, tonight I just found out that there's a 4th owl, and it's a different type of species. This first shot is what all 3 of our original owls look like, but this 4th owl has a completely different look. It's got a really white face and belly and looks completely different than the other owls, so I'm hoping there's an owl expert out there that can tell me what species we have. I did a little research online. If I had to guess, I would say it was a barn owl, but I'm not 100% sure. But that is a really cool shot of the owl hanging out with the doe. And I've got another really interesting shot here. So we've got several bucks that are in velvet out here in the middle of the peanut crop eating the hay, and some of them bathing the other ones. But you'll notice they all get startled a little bit. I'm sure it's because one of them heard another deer blow. And check that out. A coyote runs right through the middle of the pack of deer, and they don't seem to mind at all. And not only that, he turns around and comes right back through, and they do not seem to mind at all. So I'm guessing that the deer are so big that the coyotes don't mess with them, and that they're only interested in the babies later on in the season. And a close-up shot of a young buck munching on some peanuts. Takes a little break to rest some, and then has to head back for some more. And you know you're in Alabama when you have that random possum walk by. Doesn't seem to bother the owl. And another nice buck out here enjoying the peanuts. And one of the reasons we didn't upload a video last week is because we went to ICAST, which is a big fishing convention, and it was the first year we got to bring our daughter Sarah, and she loved it. You can see a lot of the manufacturers testing out their lures, and you get to see the latest and greatest products. And they have a lot of fun stuff set up, like these big fish tanks. And the tanks are actually big enough that people can cast their baits out there and see how the fish react to it. So that's a pretty cool setup. They got lots of other cool products like bubblers, electronics, and propellers. And we get to vote on our favorite new fishing products that are getting released to the market this year. And Sarah went on her first roller coaster and loved every minute of it. She's going to be a little daredevil. Alright folks, that's going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to follow along with these bass and all the other future projects we got coming up with this pond. But I hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.